Okay, so here's what I cut off right there. I just I used a sawzall, cut that off with just a good metal blade, and then I just kind of touched it with a sandpaper, a flapper wheel on my grinder, my angle grinder. And here's what I did with the other one, the other side. It's right here. See, I took off good clearance there. And one thing I wanted to also point out was here's the speedometer hole for the speedometer gear. Now this transmission would have had the pickup. It wouldn't have been a cable. It would have been a pickup, a magnetic pickup of whatever sorts. But I want to tell you that the normal transmission cable style will fit in here along with the gear. You use the same gear and housing that you have on your regular 727. It'll fit right on there. So don't get too freaked out because it's a different type of transmission hookup or speedometer gear hookup. It'll all work. It'll all work. Okay, so what we're going to do is put the converter in. As if you can see, there are two notches in that converter on the snout there. Those are both for the pump that's in there. Now you can look inside there and you can see there's two spots in there. And so we got to make sure that those spots are lined up and this thing will slide in smoothly. And you got to finesse it just a little bit. Your hands out of there, because if you do not get this pump, see, you would think that, boy, that's in already. It's not in yet. You don't want to bolt this thing together and have this converter not pushed all the way in. That converter should go in far enough to where you have to pull it back to get the bolts in. So by doing that, you kind of lift and spin this. One thing I also want to note is when you put a converter in, you should fill it roughly halfway with fluid. So when you tip it up, it doesn't quite run out, you know. Then you slide it in here and you try to do this. I don't know if you can see those pump bolts. The pump, it's like that little notch that's right inside that housing. That's what we're aiming for. You should be able to put the converter in there, just kind of walk it up on there. The other thing that you're lining up are the two sets of splines on the shaft, like that. So you can see how far that transmission is in there. My finger's in here, halfway between my first and second knuckle. You can see it's all the way back. And what happens is, the longer obviously it takes you to get there, the more fluid will come out, because this will, by trying to do this, some fluid is going to start coming out of the converter. So you can see it is right in here. And I'll wipe that up, and then I will put it underneath the car, and I'll jack it up, start bolting it on, and then I'll show you where I'm at. Working on the transmission mount for the 46RH in the 74 Plymouth Roadrunner. So what I did is I took this transmission came out of a 95 Dodge Ram truck. So it had this plate here, and I'm going to use that plate, or at least some of it. See where it's, I put two lines in it that are parallel and in line with the frame where the normal transmission mount would have gone. So I'm going to use this. I'm going to put a mount here, and then I'm going to make my transmission mount come around down underneath that. So this will be bolted. There'll be a mount bolted to this, and then it'll bolt through the cross member that comes here. So we're going to go over, and I'm going to look at the cross member that I had taken off from the car, and let's take a look here. Over here, here's the cross member here. A lot of junk on my bench right now, but so is what I'm going to do is I will cut this down and down here. Get rid of all this in the middle. I'm going to try to just cut it down to here, right down to the very bottom, to see if I have enough room. I don't think so, but we'll see. And then if I don't have enough room, I'll cut it all the way through and then rebuild the bottom. But meanwhile, these will be able to be bolted into the factory spots. So then all I have to do is just basically connect these two with some steel and using my mount. Now I'm trying something a little bit different as far as a mount goes. I'm using this mount here. Some of you might look at that and say, well, that's an engine mount, and that's exactly what it is. Now you could go to Advance Auto or one of those auto parts stores and probably get a sandwich style mount for a transmission. This is something I had laying around. It's in pretty good shape. Feels like it's got a really strong durometer. So I want to use that, and what I'll do is I will basically bolt this into here. It'll be down here, but into here, and then this right here will bolt into the plate that's up there. That's why I have marks there. I can now take that off of there. I can find the center, and this is where the center of that will go. And that's what I'm going to attempt to do. So that is the mount that I'm going to be making now. You can make mounts all different ways, and there's right and wrong ways, I guess, to do it. But I was going to try to use the original mount, which this is the original mount here. Now you can buy these mounts, even at, you can buy them for a couple bucks for the whole thing. The problem is I was going to have to modify it too much, and I was worried that it might come down too far by the time I get messing around with it. So right now I think I'm going to go this other route to kind of keep it a little bit more compact. Otherwise I'd have to cut this all up and try to make it all work. So here's my mount that I'm making. I know it's a little crude right now, but I had this big plate that came on the transmission mount anyway. So I'm going to use that because it bolts on in a few places, and then it allows me to put the transmission mount right directly below the frame. And like I said, this is just starting to get it together. I got to tack a few things, take it apart, grind, weld, all that other stuff. But anyway, this is basically what it is. This is the mount. It's kind of a hard rubber mount that I'm using here. I'm going to trim a few things, clean this up, make this look all better. I don't have all the equipment to fabricate a really nice looking, so I'm going to grind and weld and everything to make it as good looking as I can. As you can see, I don't have a metal brake, so I actually had to cut through this steel and to be able to bend it. Now is what I'll do is I'll weld that, and that'll be just as strong, and then I'll I'll cut back some of this. I'll put a gusset in here. Same with this other side, maybe even along this edge. Just to kind of clean it up, make it look more presentable, I will blend all this stuff in. But this is the preliminary. This just goes to show what we need to do sometimes, you know, especially without a fabrication shop. So this is what you got to do. All right, we're going to put the speedometer gear in. I have the speedometer gear. You can see it goes right in that hole there. You can see the gear in there. We're going to match it up with that gear right there. And then here's how we're going to do it. Now, we're going to take this gear and we'll put it in there. And the idea is to get those two to mesh. So you can just set this in here and usually put this at the bottom. This is like an eccentric. So you put it at the bottom and you can push this in there like that. And then you turn this. So this is what we do after we slide that in there. I'm going to spin this, and I have this little square drive right here. It says it's a CHVS1. I don't know what that means, but anyway, I have this little square drive, and you can also use like an old speedometer cable. Actually, that's what I used to use. And you stick it into the square of this. And as you can see here, I can spin the gear right now. So I'm going to turn this. Okay. You got to turn it, and you're feeling the backlash here. It's a little bit of backlash right there. It's kind of like where you want it, but I think you can, if you go a little more, just got to make sure you still see make sure the backlash is just a tool. It's got to be in there. So that's pretty darn good right there. So then I take my piece here, and it lines up. It's really close. Just a hair more, like that. Double check it. And that gear, you see, I can slide the gear in and out. That means there's a little bit of play there. You don't want that jammed. You could turn this up even further and jam it. But the idea is to have just a little bit of backlash. Now, I've seen these things when people put them in wrong and they're barely hitting and they wear out the gear. So that's why I'm just kind of going over this. Most of you probably know how to do this, but this is what I do. I could put a handle on there if I wanted to get a little bit better, but you know, I got a little movement. I might have just a little bit of backlash, maybe just a little. That's it. That's all you need. All right, now that I got the speedometer gear in tight, I will put my cross member in. Now, what I did with my cross member, I see I got it notched here, and I have it notched over here. This is so I can get into this bolt if I need to. This is for a little clearance for the speedometer gear cable to come out. So, put this up in there, and I got to put it in my transmission at the same time. Just like that. Oh, there's some dirt in there. Anyway, just like that. Then I have a couple of nuts to go on here for my mount. Got the nuts and the cross member. Okay. Now this is still pretty crude as far as the mount goes. It's not all ground out and everything perfect yet, because I'm going to, this is all test fit stuff, test run. I'm going to actually have it running, driving. And you can see that the transmission is also cruddy, but I'm just going to test run it. After that, everything's going to come back apart again, and this will get reground and stuff. I just spray bomb this real quick. This is actually going to get powder coated and everything. Same with the torsion bar cross member. We'll get that too. So now I'm just going to turn this up. So now we got the cross member in. Now we're going to put the torsion bar cross member in. So I found that you can actually put the torsion bars in at the same time you're putting cross member in. Just like that. Just like that. I can lower this down. Now that the transmission should be in there now for good. I've done several in and outs on the transmission, several on and offs of the cross member, and then the torsion bar cross member also had to be notched to clear this. I notched a little farther to the left so I make sure I can get to that speedometer piece when I want to put the cable on. So I should be able to go through here pretty easily with the nut. If not, I can notch this, but I think I can squeeze that in there. Cable can come straight out this way and down. However, it is to avoid the exhaust, I might make a little plate to have it clear.